Hello and welcome to the Reds Report. This is Barnsley FC's longest running podcast, 10 years, episode 5 or 6, I believe this is, and we are proud to be part of the TalkSport Fans Network. Now, Ian is still in Barcelona. Contract negotiations are going well. So what we've done, we've had a look who was available on a free transfer, and we've hit the jackpot. Never mind.
Very free.
Phill Hall is with us. Good evening, Phil. How are you?
Good evening. Pretty good, Carlo. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. And of course, wearing a Dortmund shirt tonight because it's a Barnsley podcast. Of course, Steve, how are you?
All right, mate. It's a bit of a shout out to my mate Mick at work. I didn't realise anybody who could do any less than me, but he manages it. So I just thought I'd put a Dortmund shirt on just for him.
Why not?
Hiya, Mick.
Let's go back to last Saturday. 195 days, I believe it was, that we've carried this monkey on our back that we can't win a league game at home. Bristol Rovers come to town, and it's a 2-1 win for Barnsley. As debuts go, then, I'll start with you, Phil. As debuts go, Dunn had a very memorable one. It just felt to me that he allowed some other players a bit more freedom. I thought Connell was more threatening and more involved in the top part of the pitch because of Dunn playing. What do you make of him? Because it's a bit of a dream debut, isn't it, for the lad?
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't really sure where exactly he was going to play, but obviously he played as a bit of a sort of two behind the front man, Cosgrove, basically. He was on the left. But what I liked, he made so much space for himself, and his link-up play with Connell was excellent for me. They seemed to have an understanding straight away, those two. Yeah. And I think the fact that he's so mobile and gets about the place, it gives more freedom for Adam Phillips. And that was noticeable as well on Saturday.
What were your impressions, Steve? Because I know we sent a text when the first goal went in. It looked a different Barnsley side. It looked a side that played with a bit more freedom and a bit more flair, a bit more intensity, and probably a Barnsley side that we could say, I'm liking this.
I think we mentioned it last week. They all seem to be playing with a little bit more freedom, not just because Dunn's coming. I think they're all playing with an increased enthusiasm for the club and for playing. I mean, the one that stands out for me at the minute, and not wanting to detract from Dunn and the impact he had, is Barry Cotter. Barry Cotter's a different player. It's a different bloke from last year. I don't know it is. Either is had a face change or whatever. But he's playing some amazing football down that right-hand side. He's getting balls in. That cross for Phillips's goal was brilliant. But there were a few players on Saturday that stood out. However, everybody, to a man, probably apart from Pines, was excellent, I thought. Phillips is definitely hitting a rich vein, which is nice to see. Cosgrove, I thought, had one of his better games because he held the ball up. And in previous games, it's as though he's tried to flick it on or run with it. He's a big guy, and we want somebody to hold ball up. And that's what he did on Saturday. And that made a big difference as well, because it allowed Dunn, it allowed Phillips, and it allowed Connell to come forward. Matty Craig were immense. He did all the dirty stuff for breaking play up. And he deserves all the plaudits that Dunn gets as well, because he had a great game.
Yeah. You mentioned Cosgrove there. I think that's the first game I've seen where we've actually played to his strengths.
Yeah.
Used him as a target man, and with having Dunn and Phillips to play off him, he's got the options now. If he can just get there, muscle about a bit, hold it up, he's got feeds. He's got choices. Yeah.
So, and I think if you talk about Phillips and Dunn with Cosgrove, you talk about Dunn allowing Luca Connell a bit more freedom and a bit more dangerous. Just about Dunn, though, as a debut goes, home debut, goal in 11 minutes. I know we talked shortly before we started recording, Phil. As debuts go, I can remember Craig Hignett just missing out on a hat-trick against Huddersfield at home, and I think he missed the penalty or it was saved or whatever. I can't think of... Listen, we've had loads of players, and some of them take, if you look at the Juvigny's debut, that was probably less memorable, wasn't it? Decent player now, but do we know of any debuts where maybe somebody scored a goal under it? Because my head is a bit of a mess at the moment. I can't think of any debut.
I'm struggling to think of one off the top of my head, but as you say, that Craig Hignett Huddersfield match was a bit special, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Including the Barnard Wonder goal, of course.
Yeah. If you're going to 1-1, if you're going to watch a match back from years ago, it has to be that one because that had everything. You mentioned Steve. You mentioned Barry Cotter. It's all over the pitch, though, isn't it? Matty Craig. You mentioned it as well, Phil. He does some of that dirty work. He sits in front of that back 3, 4, 5, whatever they are. He is the defender of the realm, isn't it? And he's got that bit of quality. The step up. He was on loan last year in League Two. He's made that step up. In the interview today, he talked about a lot more intensity, which suits him. Is it fair to say that we're in like the middle of September, but everybody seemed to be getting into their strides at the right time? I know with Duff we had to wait a while, didn't we? It was like later in the year.
I'd say Steve Clark's obviously instigated Darryl Clark, rather, get it right, has instigated a plan, and the players are enjoying it and sticking to it. It's working well.
We were talking about the defence last week, Steve. Besides the error, which we might as well talk about now, obviously, if a keeper comes, as a defender, it's the ball goal specialist or the player, but never both. And then the keeper was coming, the defender is coming, Pines. And sloppy, is that fair to say?
You could use sloppy if you want. Train crash, drop to bollock, whatever you want to do. He whipped Pines off at half time, which I could see. I could see that happening. But again, Slanina made an error, which he did. But by God, did he keep us in that game as well? O'Keefe's 50 pence head, he went to head it one way and it went other way. How he kept that out, I'll never know.
I don't know how far he managed that one.
No, I think he got his eyes shut, so it didn't matter. But no, you're always going to have odd error in the game, and as long as it's not a frequent thing, I think Slanina's still learning. He's a young lad, and he's going to make mistakes. But as long as he makes more good, brilliant saves than mistakes, and we can still win a game, you know what? Why not? Why not keep? You've got to keep him there anyway, because I'm not being funny. What's his backup?
Yeah, and bear in mind as well, keeper's the last line of defence. So if they make a mistake, it's going to be a goal. Yep. If your centre half makes a mistake, you've got the keeper behind it. But
yeah, you're either the hero or the villain, and you as a goalkeeper.
Yeah,
you do your job, and nobody really talks about it because you've done your job. But a midfielder can lose the ball. There's somebody to back up. But like you say, Slanina. Both goal scorers, Phillips and Dunn, obviously went off. I think it was huge injuries, but it's a worry a little bit. So, if for whatever reason neither of those two are fit to play Stevenage on Saturday, Phil, let's go you first. Who would come in? Because there is a plethora of midfielders. See that word?
What? What's that mean?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's as bad as that bloody rubbish Spanish you put on Twitter the other day that nobody understood.
We've got a wide array, a vast array of midfielders that he can pick. But it just worked, didn't it? So clearly, if they're fit, they'll be playing. But if they don't, how do you change that? Because that would have a huge impact, wouldn't it?
Yeah, you've obviously got to bring somebody else in, but I'd look at bringing Karen Lofthouse in. I think he's very unfortunate not to be in the starting lineup at the moment. Whenever I've seen him, he's looked impressive recently. And he's another one of these players that he's got plenty of pace He can move about. He's got good movement off the ball, so he could fill one of those 2 slots. No problem for me.
The Lofthouse is a interesting one, isn't it, Steve? Because he came to the club and was put out on loan, and it seemed to have worked for him because he's come back a player that can play in this division, and he's ready. He's shown that when he's come on. I know we talk about Stevenage, but even in the press conference and on Twitter and everything else, all eyes seem to be a Tuesday night at Old Trafford when we take on Manchester United. I know professionally that won't be on the players' mind, Steve, but is there a bit of a chance that people might not go into that tackle because they want to play on Tuesday? Or is that now the professional, they'll give 100% and it's all about Saturday, whatever happens on Sunday, that will be focused on afterwards?
Yeah, they're all professional and they're all human beings and they'll all want to play at Old Trafford on Tuesday night. And anybody who tells me that if there's a 50-50 that they think they've got a chance of getting injured and not playing on Tuesday, that they don't pull it a little bit, I think's having a laugh. I'd like to think in this day and age that players would give the full commitment to the game that they're in. Stevenage, compared to playing at Old Trafford, yeah, they'll want to get 3 points at Stevenage. Of course, they will want to keep this run going. But also, like anybody would want to do, of course you want to play at Old Trafford on Tuesday night. They're only human. I don't think it'll be something that'll stand out in tackles and stuff like that. I think you'll just see players giving 100%. But yes, of course it's going to be on the back of their mind. Of course they don't want to pick an injury up. They'll want to play at Old Trafford. They'll want to play against a semi-decent Man U side. I don't think Manchester United will put a full squad out. I think there'll be a lot of kids in there and maybe some second stringers, that can't get into the first team, or even ones that's coming back from injury. So there'll still be names that household names, but who wouldn't want to play against that?
Yeah, I think the other side of that is that if I was Darryl Clark, I'd be telling him on Saturday, well, you're in the team now, but you're still playing for your place for Tuesday, so
yeah.
Don't shirk it today and you ain't going to play Tuesday.
It's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously in the other cup, the Bristol Street Motors Trophy, we were 2-0 up against the under-21s, albeit of Manchester United, and threw that away in the last 6 minutes or whatever it was. And I suppose some of those might feature again in the Carabao Cup. But you know what? That's Tuesday. Let's look at Stevenage then. 17th in the table. Not a brilliant run of results at the moment. They won against Shrewsbury, lost against Norwich, lost against Huddersfield. They won in the Bristol Street Motors Trophy against Crystal Palace on the 21s, draw with Burton, and then lost 1-0 against Lincoln. For us then, Phil, different team, different venue, same intensity needed again for Darryl Clark. Yeah. Same message of we just go at him.
Definitely. The old adage, one game at a time. You treat every game the same, basically. Stevenage last year, I think they punched a bit above their weight, to be honest, but they had a good season. Fell away a bit towards the end. But this year they've started poorly. They've lost Steve Evans, obviously. But Alex Revel's come in. He's been around the place. He was at Rotherham for quite a few years. He knows that division. So I think they'll be, they'll be pushing into the top, easy place to go. But for us, we just got to keep this run going now. Including the Sheffield United game, we've got 3 wins on the bounce. So let's keep that winning mentality going.
Yeah. And that's a huge morale boost as well, knowing we've done that home and away. Because it's still weird, isn't it, Steve? We'll never get to the bottom of it, but we've talked about it what seems like every season, that away form, less pressure. I don't know, but we seem to perform better away. How does Darryl Clark now make sure that some of those away performances and that intensity and is on display at Oakwell as well? Because that is the key between finishing mid-table or maybe challenging for the playoffs at the end of the season, isn't it? Picking points up home as well as away.
I think it's a natural way to go now. Last season we played reasonably well away, and didn't play very well at home. But then you look at the other things that were going off in the background with the team, with certain players. You look at it today, you look at the atmosphere around the club, the atmosphere around the players that are there, the obvious improvement in morale in the dressing room, which you can see in press conferences, you can see it on pitch when they're playing. And I think it'll just be a natural progression that we will continue as good away form, and that will be then transposed into his own form. The more wins we can get, let's face it, playing in front of our lot, I mean, we're all backseat bloody managers, aren't we? So there's no wonder we're all shouting and bawling at them, and that's just the way that it is down at Oakwell. But I think the way the players are playing, as long as the results keep coming, the crowd will be behind them even more so, and I just think it will snowball. I really do. There's definitely optimism there, a lot more than there was last season.
Yeah, there's a good feeling, isn't there? There's a good buzz around the place generally.
Well, I was just going to talk about that because during the transfer window, Steve says, and it's right, when you're at Oakwell, we're all wannabe managers, players, coaches, blah, 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 blah. During the transfer season, as deadline day loomed, and then there was a signing, the Swedish lad from Holland who played in Holland, but that didn't go ahead. And the abuse, the owners, the board got, and I get people get frustrated, but you can't really hurl abuse until the window is shut and you know if you've bought somebody or not, isn't it? It's a bit like bemoaning a Christmas present before you've opened it. You need to see first. And now suddenly, on Saturday, it felt different. When I drove home, the people were talking, people were animated, people felt like, we're back in this. But listen, and I know people don't go on Twitter to say, thank you for buying him, but it's a thankless task, isn't it, running a football club? I saw today, I need to look further into it, but I believe a further 3 million has been put into the club by the members of the board, to keep things going and everything else. And then I think, the players, listen, it's one match. Dunn looks like a player that can change a season for us. Listen, will never be a one-man team, but he will definitely improve things. He can add, Humphreys, we'll have to wait and see, but he comes with a pretty good report from Wigan. For all the abuse they got, I know, but you got to say, this seem to got it right, haven't they? It might have been the last day of the transfer window, Phil, but the type of players we needed were the players that were brought in.
Yeah, and it very often does go to the last day for many clubs. Because everybody's waiting to see what everybody else is doing. I won't sell A until I've bought B, and I can't buy B until somebody else has bought C. It does go like that, and it very often goes to the wire, which it did in our case once again. But the main thing is, as you say, we got him. So
And then also, what shows again, Steve, is the key appointment of Daryl Clark. You mentioned Barry Cotter. Barry Cotter was at the club last season. And when we saw him, I mean, he played in the same position, but there seemed to be a different energy about him. There seemed to be a different, I dare say, aura about him. He seems confident. He's taking people on. His head's up, his chest out. So we go again to the key appointment is that if you get the manager right, you listen to what he needs and you fill those places, you've got a real chance of making this a very memorable season, let's say, Steve.
I mean, first and foremost, there's got to be talent there in first place. But then you do need somebody who's going to bring that talent out and nurture it and improve it. Collins last season didn't seem to do that with any of the players. I didn't see any improvement in any of the players last season. And in the first few games, I mean, like you said, we're only at the beginning of September. Already you can see players playing with their heads up, having more confidence, and like you said, Barry Cotter is a prime example of that. He looks 2 yards quicker. He looks 1,000% more confident. Clark is obviously having that desired effect on every player because they're all improved. They've all improved in a short space of time. I mean, even Josh Benson, who we've not mentioned, came on Saturday for the last, 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. He looked 2 yards quicker. Got lovely hair as well. It looked as though he'll turn into a bit of a David Ginnell now. Getting that a bit of a L'Oreal moment or something there. Quite fancy him myself.
He really put himself about though, didn't he, when he came
And
on?
he
you know?
did. And
He got
you
stuck
see,
in and showed some nice touches.
when you say
We
about
all know he can do, you know.
yeah, when you say who would you fill places in if Phillips and Dunn don't play on Saturday? Well, it looks as though Benson's ready to go. How long he can last with his chocolate legs, I don't know. But he's another one. Clark has definitely had an amazing effect. And not necessarily just him, let's face it. Urahan's come in as a coach. You've got to think that he's had some sort of influence as well. No, it's looking good. And it's not all down to drugs.
And
I think Dean Whitehead coming in as a coach has made a difference as well. I think there's so much experience in that coaching staff now, in all sort of areas of the pitch. That's the difference.
And I genuinely, and this is not aimed, I think one of the key decisions any head coach makes is who is captain. And last year we said it a few times, and that's nothing aimed at Jordan Williams because he served the club for a long time and served it well to the best he could. I just never felt he was a captain. Luca Connell, to me, is a captain. Luca Connell, the communication, you know, when somebody takes a shot and, you know, it flies over and it lands in a garden in Monkbretton, he's the first one to go over and, you know, pat on the back and come on, we go again.
But is that what he said? Is that really what he said? Do you
do
think?
it again and I'll break it. You go.
Something like
That's the bridge version.
So I think the captain, who you choose, is really important. But when you mentioned Benson just then, Steve, it's easy to say, isn't it? Like, oh, you know, we're not seeing anything. But imagine going through life with the injuries that he has had to keep trying to come back to the level that you were previously. Because he came from, he came from, was it Burnley? He came.
Burnley, yeah.
Yeah. With all this promise. And when we first saw him, like, wow, what a player. The number of injuries that he's had, and they've been lengthy injuries. It must be really hard to keep finding that determination deep down in there to try again. But again, that's where the head coach relationship is so important. Somebody who can motivate you, you know, to run that extra yard, to jump that extra inch to try and get that header. And just, all in all, it just feels like the stars aligning might be a little bit much, but I just feel that who we've retained should have been retained. Who we've bought were players that were needed. We have a great mix of experience, you can say age, and some of the younger players that are just the young talent. And it's really hard, Steve, but I'm going to try it with you. It's really hard to be negative about anything, isn't it?
If I were going to be negative about one thing,
go on.
You'll like this.
Go on then.
And I'd be interested to know if anybody else has noticed it. And I've noticed it over the last couple of seasons, to be honest. Why is Toby Tyke's bottom lip stick out so much? I've never seen a dog, any sort of dog, with a bottom lip that sticks out as much as his head does. And for me, it's wrong. Well, so that's my negative view for this week's show. Toby Tyke's
that's the most negative we can get.
Well, it's not bad, is it? Let's be honest, Phil, it's not bad.
It's not bad. It's not bad.
But next time when you see him...
I know exactly why it sticks out.
Go on.
Because that's where the bloke's eyes are. And that's how he sees.
Well, how big are his eyes? They can't be that bloody big. Christ. I could land a F-14 on that lip. Anyway, so there you go. I think we ought to have a redesign in a Toby Tyke's head. Because his bottom lip's just wrong.
Don't go changing if you don't need fixing. Everything is working now. If we change...
You'll even be promoting Clapping Son next, you.
No, but I think Tina should come back. But that's besides that. Stevenage.
She's got even bigger lips.
Stevenage, would you make any changes?
Who are you asking?
Let's go with you first, Steve. If everybody is fit, do you keep things as they are? Do you look at pints? Do you, obviously changes were made. How do you start?
Do you know what? I would probably go with same starting 11. You can't just drop Pines after one silly mistake. No. Else you'd be dropping Sladina as well. And you can't do that either. So I would probably say if everybody's fit, he'll probably go for me with same starting 11, to be honest.
And
yeah, me too.
Is that same for you? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Kieran Lofthouse obviously came on for Cotter. Corey O'Keefe came on for Pint at half time. Aidan Marsh came on for Kayla Dunn towards the end. And Josh Benson on 67 minutes. So he had a good 20 odd minutes came on. Georgie Gent, unlucky then because Dunn is doing well and in that role. What does he need to do? Because he came on. Then obviously he was taken off because it was the Mansfield match, and obviously something didn't work. What is his way back into the squad, Phil? Georgie Gent.
He's just got to plug in away, hasn't he? Because he's not really hit the ground running yet, has he? He came in with a lot of recommendation, a lot of promise. I know a few Blackburn fans were sorry to see him go. So he's not really hit the ground running. He's just got to keep plugging away and try and make that place his own.
And to finish off then, 25 minutes in, it's the question that we always ask. So, Barnsley away at Stevenage on Saturday. Steve, you first. The final result and the first Barnsley goal scorer, if there is one.
I think we're still riding that crested wave, so I'm definitely going for a win. I'm going for a 2-0. And your first goal scorer, because I think he deserves one, will be Cosgrove.
Cosgrove, 2-0. I like it. Phil?
I think we might struggle to keep a clean sheet again, so I'm going 2-1 win to the Reds with Adam Phillips, first goal scorer.
Adam Phillips. 3-1.
You can't have Devante Cole.
Oh, why not? Oh, yeah, he's gone. I'm going 3-1, and I'm going the first goal scorer, Donovan Pines. Corner ball, boom. Like that. Like an eagle. USA Eagles, like an eagle flying through. Yeah, so we're all pretty confident Barnsley will get a win. I know it's different because it's a cup competition. When you play Man United, is it about the occasion, or do we go there to try and beat them?
You definitely go there to try and beat them. It's going to be a good occasion anyway, whatever. But you've got to go there to try and win the game. No two ways about it. I mean, I suppose one thing we haven't talked about is, with the extortionate ticket prices, the club are going to make an awful lot of money out of this tie.
Yeah.
And if you actually get through it, there's a good chance of getting a decent tie the next round.
Yeah.
So you've got to go and try and get through. Even if it's a scrappy game and you win it on penalties,
Credit for those that are going. I think it was 40 quid, was it? 41, 42 quid for it,
I think, yeah. The interesting thing is the home tickets are 35.
Yeah. I don't know. Is it exactly half the gate? Half for the home team, half for the away team?
Is it 40%? Because they take their expenses and stuff like that after it.
Yeah, expenses come off first, and then it's a two-way split.
Right, okay.
But you've obviously got VAT and everything to take into account, so, it's not as much as it seems. VAT. It's going to be interesting, isn't it? Because if you look at Darrell Clark, he's not going to there to make the numbers off or to go for the occasion. He's going to go there to try and beat Man United. And when people say, it's only cup competition, it's a brilliant way to earn more revenue, isn't it? You could, if it goes to a couple of rounds, you could earn the wages for a year for one of the players that you've just signed when you look at the prize money per round. Well, we'll be back next week, hopefully. Pretty sure talking about an away victory at Stevenage, and who knows, our name might be in the hat for the next round of the Carabao Cup after beating Man United. I'd say bring Liverpool to Oakwell, but hey, that's just me. Phil, just in case, should Ian get a permanent contract in Spain, we obviously then need to enter contract negotiations with ourselves. So our agent will be in touch. If this is the last that we've seen of Ian. Just before we go though, because we cannot have Phil on the show, I just want you to talk a little bit, Phil. 70 years. I know you volunteer at Barnsley Hospital, like you said before. The hospital broadcasting that you do, 70 years this has been going now? 70 years, yeah. 70 years in August. So,
which is mad, isn't it? Like hospital radio for 70 years. We're not saying you've been doing it for 70 years, Phil.
I've
But-
been doing it long enough, I'll tell you.
But when you look back, you've seen we moan week in, week out. Well, Steve moans. I just recorded and edited. But you know, we moan about this, we moan about that. What have been the darkest days that you've seen at Oakwell? And I don't mean we once played on a Tuesday night and it was -3 and it was really dark, but what have been, I suppose, being during that time where we were administration and the future being unclear, we moan now that they're not spending £1 million on a striker, but at one point, the future of the club was completely in doubt, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. And going back even further than that, I mean, the future of the club was in doubt, sort of 67, 68, it was a bit doubtful. And then for me, the real dark days were sort of very early 70s, 70, 71, 72, 73. Bottomish of the 4th division, it was woeful stuff to watch. You know, I've been at Oakwell where there's been a crowd of 1,700. You know, it was depressing.
Me and Steve being and about a crowd of 6, but that's because we were playing with the Fit Reds. But we'll talk about that another.
There weren't even 6; it were 5, and they'd got a dog. You counted dog.
Yeah. We should count legs, and then it's a lot more. And how long have you been doing it? How long have you been involved then with the hospital broadcasting, Phil?
51 years.
Wow.
Just to put that in context, I'm 53.
I was only 6 when I started,
I'm 53 in a couple of weeks. For my lifetime, Phil has been at Oakwell as a volunteer. Phil, always great chatting to you. Continue what you're doing, because I know besides Hospital Radio, you're also involved with some groups that happen at Oakwell during the week, I believe.
Yeah, with the charitable trust, yeah.
Yeah, and just while you're here, it's not like advert, but what are these groups aimed at, and when are they?
We have one on a Wednesday afternoon, just called Reminiscent Reds. It was originally aimed at people with dementia and their carers, give them somewhere to go, give the carers a bit of respite as well. And with the onset of COVID, we had to stop for a while. And then post-COVID, we found a lot of people were just lonely anyway. It was highlighted, you know, by COVID, the fact that there were so many people isolated and lonely. So we just made it an open house, and we've got dementia patients, we've got carers of dementia patients. Some come with the patients, some just come get an hour or 2 off. Yeah. Somebody else looking after the dementia patient, and the carer comes just to have a good time. We've got people who live on their own, people recently bereaved. We've got some people with learning difficulties. It's an open house, and we just sit and have a bit of a chinwag and a cup of coffee and some biscuits. We play a few games, have a few quizzes, put the world to rights. It's just a bit of fun, and that's on a Wednesday afternoon at 2 o'clock in the Ozone next to the main reception at Oakwell.
You know, when you just said we put the world to rights, we have a cup of tea or a cup of coffee and a biscuit, it sounds like an afternoon in Steve's house when he's working from home.
There's no need for that, is there? Really, no. I ain't got no biscuits. Can't afford them.
What's the other group?
We do other bits as well. We have, you know, we've done a ground tour there. We've had players come in, talk to us, and go through things. Oh, we have lately. We've had A.D. Moses, K.O.D.O. the J. We've had Colin Walker, if you remember Colin the Bin Man. Wayne Goodison's popped in, so you know it's good. You know, just chat to the people and get them all involved, and we all have a good time basically. And then on Friday we have what's called the Strolling Reds, which is just a walking group basically. Not massive walking. We don't do more than 2 or 3 miles, something like that. Maybe a good hour's walk, and then have a coffee or something afterwards. You know, and again, it's just a chance for people to meet up. They can come as and when they want. Some weeks we've got half a dozen people, some weeks we've got 15 or 20, you know, it varies, but it just keeps people involved. Yeah. And it's good that the club are doing stuff like this.
I want to say it is because they talk about it is the heartbeat of the Barnsley community, isn't it? Barnsley Football Club, and I suppose it's easy, and we're all guilty of that, to to blast them when results are not right, or we're not bought a player, or we thought we signed Ollie McBurney, but the fax machine were broke. But actually, in the background, there is some real, I dare say, life-changing stuff happening. Thanks to volunteers like yourself. I know there's lots of others as well, but thanks to volunteers like yourself, because does it really matter if the fax machine work when you've got people that have got an opportunity to meet and mingle with some other ones because they spend most of the time on their own at home? So I think, we must never forget that there is a footballing side and there is a real community side to Barnsley as well, isn't there?
That's right, yeah. It always has been a community-based club, and long may it continue to be so, but the charitable trust really does make a difference to a lot of people's lives.
You heard it there. Nominated by, I believe, BBC Radio Sheffield as, is it Volunteer of the Year?
Oh, I thought you weren't going to mention that. Yes, it's tomorrow.
Is it tomorrow?
It's tomorrow afternoon. Yes.
Well, I am working, but I will keep an eye on Twitter. Steve might be golfing. I'll ask him to keep an eye on Twitter. Well, best of luck. And you know what? I think the work you do, it's not about, it's lovely you're recognised, and I genuinely mean that. But I think you probably get the satisfaction of seeing people turn up to your clubs and just enjoying them.
Precisely, yeah.
Being able to. And you know what?
I don't do it because somebody's giving me a medal. I do it because I enjoy it. And I get a lot out of it myself.
I think, Phil, I don't know what else. I think you're an example, and I called you the Jedi in our WhatsApp group the other day. Because it's, life is hard for everybody, isn't it? There's lots happening. And to continue to dedicate some of your time to help others, I think is just an absolutely amazing thing. So thank you very much for joining us. I'm sure we'll talk to you very soon again. Good luck tomorrow.
Thank you. I'll keep you posted.
If our colleagues are there from BBC Radio Sheffield and you do not get the award, then I'll have to go through with Facebook.
We'll sort them out.
That's all. Thanks very much, Phil. Steve, thank you very much as well.
No worries.
Can you give us a little insight in what shirt you'll be wearing next week already, maybe? Have you got anything,
I might delve into the pink parcel next week.
Well, I just leave it there and leave that to your imagination. You have been listening to the Reds Report. We'll be back next week. You Reds.